Clayton from Wichita, Kansas. Hulk Hogan will always be an icon. I really didn't get into wrestling until the late 90s. I knew Hogan by reputation, but the Hogan that I got to know made his entrance to Voodoo Child with a stogie in his mouth playing the WCW title like a guitar. You couldn't get cooler than that during that time period. Which, well, you know what? It's funny. There was that one entrance that the NWO made, and it was him and Rodman leading the pack, where they followed them from the back through like the curtain out onto the stage while Voodoo Child played. I might have been in Detroit. I don't know where they were, but that is still one of the coolest entrances ever in wrestling. So you're not wrong about that. Which brings me to my mailbag question, and it's probably a no-brainer: buy or sell? Peak Hogan 80s or peak Hogan 90s? Well, I mean, two different versions of Hulk, but I got to go peak Hogan 80s. That's what started it all. Peak Hogan 90s happened only because of peak Hogan 80s. But as an 80s child growing up, through that Hulkamania boom, there was nothing bigger. In the 90s, Hogan, as Hollywood Hogan in the NWO, that was huge. But you had Hogan in the NWO, and then you had Austin, you had Rock. I mean, there were different things going on. I can't vote against peak Hogan in the 80s, though. I got to buy on that and sell on the 90s one. Gavin from Salt Lake City. I saw a recent episode of Superstars in the Vault channel. As did I, by the way. I saw that same episode. I was shocked they uploaded an episode from 1991. They don't even have those on Peacock. It featured one of the vignettes with Jake the Snake Roberts and the Ultimate Warrior, where he was trying to teach Warrior about the dark side, but ultimately betrays him to The Undertaker, who he had been feuding with after getting locked in a casket. I remember this story so vividly as a kid, and even saw Warrior against Undertaker at a house show that June, but it seemed like it was building to something at SummerSlam until Warrior got teamed with Hogan in the match made in hell. Do you have any insight into why this story fizzled out, or what might have happened if McMahon did not fire the Warrior after the whole SummerSlam debacle? Well, I mean, I just assumed that the plan coming out of SummerSlam would have been for Warrior and Jake to have a program together. I believe that was the plan. So when Warrior went away, they pivoted to Jake and Sid Justice. Because if you remember, at that SummerSlam, they also had Macho Man and Elizabeth. They got married. Right? I mean, they were already married, but they got married on the show at Madison Square Garden. When the show was over, they had a wedding reception. And they shot an angle at that wedding reception where Elizabeth opens up one of the gift boxes and a snake pops out of it. And Undertaker shows up and I think hit Macho Man with the urn. Jake was there and he's got the snake and he's threatening Elizabeth with it. And then Sid Justice shows up to intervene and save the day. So the idea was that Jake and Sid were going to go off and work together. And then Sid got hurt. I think he tore his bicep or his tricep. I think his bicep. So he got hurt. If you remember, he was going to be, I think, leading his own team at Survivor Series. And because of the injury, they couldn't do that. So they ended up calling Macho Man back early. And that's how we got that awesome feud with Macho Man and Jake the Snake. That was never supposed to happen. But Warrior got fired. Sid got hurt. And we ended up with gold between Jake and Savage. And it didn't last very long. I mean, it really was only, 3 months? Probably not even a full 4 months. But it's one of my favorite feuds as a wrestling fan, was the Jake and the Macho Man stuff they did at the end of 91. I love that shit. Chris from Bethlehem. 2 questions. When Ultimate Warrior had his match with Hollywood Hogan in WCW, he basically disappeared off TV after that. Why didn't WCW continue to push him, and what was his contract status at the time? I don't know what the length of his contract was. He was still under contract. I don't know what the length of the contract was, but they basically just brought him in to lose to Hogan. So Hogan can get his win back from WrestleMania. I mean, that's basically how it worked out. Worked out pretty well for Hogan. I remember Warrior was on Nitro the next night. And I think he said Hogan's win was a fluke and he beat up the NWO. He may have made 1 or 2 more appearances after that. I don't remember. But then he just very quietly disappeared. It's not like they shot some kind of an angle or he got hurt. He just vanished. I'm sure he was a basket case to work with. And so they just ate the remainder of his contract and said, look, it's not worth dealing with him anymore. So they paid him probably whatever was left on his contract, and that was it. I know it's hard to believe that the Ultimate Warrior was difficult to work with. And second question, I just found out Hulk Hogan had a band called the Wrestling Boot Band. Was the band part of WWF at the time, and how long did they last? So no, they were not part of the WWF. This would have been 95. So Hogan was long gone from the WWF. And I think they only released one album. They put out with Hogan was the front man. His wife, Linda, actually sang on the album. And Jimmy Hart was the kind of the driving force and the mastermind behind it. I think his American Made song from WCW was on there. I know Linda sang one song. God, what was it called? There was at least one song that she lent her voice to. It was like Hulk's the One or Hulk's Number One. It was something like that. And then that Hulkster in Heaven song is on there as well, which is the one where he always claimed it was dedicated to a dying Make-A-Wish kid that he met at Wembley Stadium in 92, and he got him tickets and he went out there for the match and he looked over and the kid wasn't there. And that's when he realized the kid had died. And he told that story once before. Like he met the kid and there was a weird stench, basically the stench of death. And he knew the kid was dying. It was a whole story, but he never wrestled at Wembley Stadium in 1992 or any other year. But then again, he also said Simon Cowell was involved with the album, which he wasn't. And he said, I think it was number 1 on the Billboard charts for like 6 weeks, which was also a lie. So, I mean, it's just Hogan being Hogan. Frank from Long Island, in honor of Hulk Hogan's passing, how would you rank his top 5 WrestleMania matches? And so he lists these matches here. Now, he lists Hulk Hogan against Andre the Giant, Hogan against Savage, Hogan against the Warrior, Hogan against The Rock, and the very first WrestleMania main event, Hogan and Mr. T against Roddy Piper and Paul Orndorff. I can't really answer this question unless you specify, are we talking about ranking them in terms of their historical significance? Because I'll do it 2 ways for you. Okay, I'll rank it by historical significance, and then I'll rank it by my personal favorites. In terms of historical significance, number 1, Hulk Hogan and Mr. T against Roddy Piper and Paul Orndorff. None of the other WrestleMania matches happened without the success of that first WrestleMania. And that first WrestleMania success was really staked on that main event and Mr. T being involved. Is a very, very important match. I mean, Hogan Andre and the slam and everything, that might be more iconic. But in terms of significance, you got to go WrestleMania 1. Then you go WrestleMania 3 against Andre. That's number 2. Number 3, I would put Hogan against the Ultimate Warrior. That was a very big deal. Again, if you were a fan back then, a younger fan especially, you had to pick sides. Like, that match was huge. So I have that at number 3. Number 4, Hogan and The Rock at 18. And number 5, Hogan against Savage. As much as I love the Mega Power story, and I know that WrestleMania did big box office, that was a big main event. In terms of just overall historical significance, I just can't put that higher than those other matches that are on the list. So I have Hogan Savage at number 5. Now, if I were to rank these in terms of my personal favorites, I go Hogan Rock at number 1. That match to me, again, it's a 5-star match. 5-star matches can mean so many different things. Everybody has their own way of ranking and rating these things. The match itself, just judged as a regular match, yeah, it's nothing special, but neither is Hogan Andre. That's actually a fucking terrible match, but it built to something very special. It is historically significant, but when you watch that moment and you watch the slam that it builds to, like, it was just so well done in terms of building to that one moment, and that's why it has stood the test of time. It doesn't matter that it's not a 5-star match. Like, that doesn't matter. So for me, Hogan Rock was all about building to that one big Hulk up near the end. And the crowd reaction to it, and then those final few minutes, like that's what pro wrestling is all about to me. So I have Hogan Rock at number 1. I have Hogan Warrior at number 2. I have Hogan Savage at number 3. Hogan Andre, I put that at number 4. And the first WrestleMania main event, the tag match, I have that at number 5. Two different lists where that tag match is completely flipped. On one list, I have it number 1. On the other list, I have it number 5. That's why context is important. Like when you ask the question, like what are we talking about here? Because it's two totally different things. Ben from Liverpool, England, with the passing of Hulk Hogan and SummerSlam coming up, how would you rank all of Hogan's matches at SummerSlam? So I brought the list up in front of me, and it wasn't that hard, honestly. I have, and this may surprise people, maybe, I don't know. I have his tag team match in 1989, where he teamed up with Brutus Beefcake against Macho King and Zeus. I have that as my number 1. I really like that match. I really like sort of the chaos there at the finish. Hogan was obviously super over. This was the peak of Beefcake's career. Beefcake, say what you want to about Brutus Beefcake. He was super over in this match. Was Zeus great? No, but you know what? He did what he needed to do in this match. He was very limited in what he could do. He was not a wrestler. He looked great. I mean, he looked scary. He was right out of the movie. Savage was Savage, right? So Savage could sort of carry the load because he was fucking great. Everybody played their roles. Sherry outside, Elizabeth was there. Everybody played their role perfectly. And it was a hot crowd. I think the match gets more hate than it deserves. I loved it. It's my favorite Hogan SummerSlam match. Was the one in 89. The match with Shawn Michaels in 2005, I would rank that number 2. And again, it gets talked about because of the comic overselling, but it's still Shawn Michaels. And so he gave Hulk Hogan one of the better matches than he's ever had. Hogan was even limited at that point of what he could do, but not as limited as he was the following year against Randy Orton, which was terrible. But, you know, he was limited, so he didn't do too much. Shawn just bumped off of him. Hogan bled. He gave, people the big spots and the leg drop and everything they wanted to see. And they actually pulled off what ended up being a pretty good match. Number 3, I have the first SummerSlam main event in 88, which was the Mega Powers against the Mega Bucks, Ted DiBiase and Andre the Giant. Number 4, I have the Hogan Earthquake match at SummerSlam 1990. Not the best finish with a countout, but I have that number 4. I have the tag match, the match made in hell from 1991, which is one of my favorite SummerSlams of all time. But that match, it was not a great match. And I have that at number, 1, 2, 3, 4. I have that number 5. And then 6th and dead last is Hogan's last ever match in WWE, that SummerSlam 2006 match against Randy Orton. Hogan had a brace on his leg. That was a legitimate knee injury that he came into the match with, and he could barely move. And I don't even remember too much beyond that about the match, other than just I remember not liking it. And I remember also thinking what a joke it was that, he went over and Randy didn't, because there really was no reason for Randy Orton not to win that match other than it's Hulk Hogan and he doesn't want to lose. He's not going to lose. So I don't like that match. So I put that dead last.